Is the Irish boxed tea any good? As someone who's eaten hundreds of them, yes. Yes, it is. Now, what's great about the boxed tea is you don't need too many ingredients because it's just based off of having potatoes. Now, the Irish pub that I used to work in, what we used to do is actually use the leftover mashed potatoes as the base for the boxed tea. But since I don't have leftover mashed potatoes, we're just gonna be dicing up some potatoes to make a really quick mashed potatoes while we get everything else ready. It is super simple to do. In a small pot, take 1 potato, throw that into your pot, cover this with water and bring this to a boil. Now, while those potatoes are working on the stove, we're gonna take a second potato. I'm using equal parts for this, just same size potatoes, don't overthink this. And we are going to grate this. Now, I normally would do like the bigger grate. I wanna see what this looks like, because this will give you a nice chunky boy. Yeah, we're gonna do that. This is what you want your potatoes to look like. You see that? Yeah, nice and thick, because it will slightly break down, but this is gonna give it some nice body in the boxed tea. Use a protective glove. Don't be like me. Make sure you get all of that potato out of there. No reason to waste. Now, because potato does oxidize very, very quickly once you start grating it, we're gonna hit this with a pinch of salt, then cover this with water. If you skip this step, like covering it with water, it's going to oxidize. You're gonna have brown boxed teas instead of nice golden crispy boxed teas. Nobody wants that. Just cover it with water. It's no problem. Now that both of the potatoes are ready, we're gonna get some batter ready for this. Now remember, boxed teas are mostly potato. They shouldn't have too much else going on. You just need some binders. So for the binders, we're using 1 whole egg, about 100 milliliters worth of milk. We're only putting half of this into here, and then the other half is gonna go into that mashed potato later. 1.5 grams worth of baking powder. This is gonna help kind of give it a pop, just a touch. The last binder is gonna be 100 grams worth of flour. Now, truth be told, in the old Irish restaurant I used to work at, we would just use Krusty's pancake mix because it was so good and it worked so well. So if you have a nice pancake mix, just use that instead of using flour, egg, and whatever else that you're putting in here. Hit this with a pinch of salt, touch of pepper, give this a quick mix. It's basically gonna turn into a paste from the amount of flour that's in here. You know what? We're gonna go ahead and add all of the milk. Instead, I'll add more milk to that. It's gonna be okay. You want this to be fairly smooth and not too lumpy because all the lumps are eventually going to come from the potato instead, so keep that in mind. Now, once you have everything kind of mixed up, it should be like a thick pancake batter, right? That's kind of what you're looking for. If necessary, we'll go back and we'll add just a touch more milk into this, or buttermilk. If you want to use buttermilk, that's also a really good option, just to thin it out enough to where we can get our nice pancakes. But we're gonna wait until all the potatoes and everything are ready to see how much liquid it brings to this first. Now, my potatoes have been boiling for just about 20 minutes or so, and what you are looking for is such a small amount, right? It doesn't take too long. If you can take a fork and you can, they fall apart like that, or they're fork tender, strain the water, these are ready to go. Once you strain out all the liquid, keep the same pot. We're gonna take those potatoes and just boom, pop them back in. You don't need to make anything else dirty. Now to these cooked potatoes, we're gonna add that 100 milliliters worth of milk. So you're using a total of 200 milliliters. And if you want the recipe, check out chefpk.com, it's all there. In addition to that 100 milliliters worth of milk, I'm gonna throw in about 20 to 25 grams worth of whole unsalted butter. Make sure it's the Kerrygold, You may as well, just go with it. We're gonna season this with a touch of black pepper, hit it with a pinch of salt, find the potato masher, yes. Just bring it together. You wanna make sure that this is like super soft, right? Because we're gonna introduce the other potatoes into this, and that's gonna provide the texture versus this providing the texture. If you really wanted to, you could put this through your KitchenAid or whatever the case is and make sure it's super smooth, but I'm not really going to need to do that. I'm actually gonna grab the whisk, and now we're gonna whisk this up. I'm just gonna make sure that it's kind of combined. Now, once the butter has melted, you should be good to go. Look at, nice and smooth and, well, kind of, still a little lumpy. It's okay, this is fine. Now, the big thing with boxed teas, the way I've learned anyways, is that you don't want this to be super hot when you introduce it to everything else because you're introducing it to raw egg and flour. You want this to kind of cool down a little bit before you start putting everything together. So we're gonna let this hang out for like 10 minutes and then put everything together. Our mashed potatoes have been cooling down for about 10 minutes or so. They're kind of like room temp. You just wanna make sure they're not too hot. Next, we're gonna strain all of our grated potatoes just to make sure you don't have any of that excess water, and then rinse them too, because it's kind of weird. After rinsing them, this is what your potatoes look like. I wish you could feel the way these potatoes feel, but they're nice and crisp feeling. This is how I like to do my potatoes for my boxed teas, for my hash browns, for really anything. I like to make sure that they're nice and clean. And they haven't oxidized, right? You don't want that brown. First, I'm gonna add the mashed potatoes to our base batter first, and then we're gonna fold in the other potatoes. I feel like it just gives you a better consistency. You've kind of smoothed it out before you introduce this grated potatoes, so you're not really fighting it too much. We take all of our, oh God, okay, well, it's in there. It's in there now. No reason to panic. Give this a quick mix with your spatula, and then we can use the whisk as well, but I don't really think we need to. It looks like it's coming together relatively nicely. Look at how nice that batter is already. I mean, you could cook this as is, but you gotta have the other potato in there. It gives it that nice dimension and flavor and body. Add all of your potato straight to this. Get all of it in there. And then just bring this together. And this is gonna be the base for our box teas. Now, what I wanna look for is the consistency and the texture, because some of these box teas we're gonna do traditionally, where it's basically just a pancake. Some of them I'm gonna make a little thinner, so that way we can actually roll the corned beef into it, similar to like the hashimaki we made. That's interesting to think about. Pancakes, man. Every culture. Pancakes. Oh, this is looking really good. So we're gonna let this set for maybe 10-15 minutes. If you put some plastic over this, it'll last you overnight without anything happening too much to it. Anything more than that and it may get weird, it may oxidize, so just keep that in mind. But we're gonna let this sit for about 10 minutes in the fridge before we cook some of these potato cakes off. Now after letting our batter rest for about 10 minutes, we can start cooking these things up, and you can cook up a bunch of them ahead of time. They actually reheat really, really well if you're worried about your batter going bad. So if you do make a big batch of it, just reheat them. You can throw them in the freezer. They reheat really nicely. But in my carbon steel pan, I'm gonna add just a touch of vegetable oil. I actually think I added just a little too much oil, so I'm gonna take some of this oil out, just wipe down the pan. Make sure it's nicely greased. You're not trying to like shallow fry these at all. And then what I like to do is grab a ladle and grab some of your batter out, right? And we're just gonna drop this straight into the center. This is over a medium, like low heat. We wanna make sure it's not too hot. And I'm gonna actually turn this down a little because the carbon pan does get pretty hot and maintains its heat really well. So we're gonna let that hang out for just a few seconds. We're gonna check on it, make sure it doesn't get too dark on the bottom. Make sure you're paying attention to these because my pan does get pretty hot, so keeping an eye on it. We're gonna flip this hopefully just once and then cook the other side, and that's gonna be it. And we'll season it with a little flaky salt, throw some sour cream on it maybe. Woo! Oh, which reminds me, we gotta pull this thing out of the oven. Get this beast resting. This has been in here since 6 a.m. It is now 2:30 in the afternoon. That is yes. All my yes. Now once you get some color on that first side, we're gonna give this a quick flip, just like that. And now you can see it's nicely griddled. Like, let me show this to you guys. See that? That's the color that you want on the first side. Now we're gonna let it griddle on the second side, make sure it's cooked through. I'm gonna keep it kind of low, so this way it cooks all the way through without getting too much color on the other side, and the boxy's ready to go. Now the other side's been going for just about 4 or 5 minutes now, and it's looking really nice. It's still a little wet on the center, right? So I'm gonna let this go. I'm gonna flip it, let it go on that side for another like 1 to 2 minutes, just to make sure it's cooked all the way through, and then it's ready to go. We're gonna rest it on this plate with some paper towel, and then we're gonna cook off the rest of them. Oh, that looks beautiful. So we're gonna let this rest. This is what my box tea is starting to look like. Yeah, you can see, look at the color on that. That's what we're looking for. I'm gonna let it rest on this paper towel just for a minute or two, just while we're working with the rest of them. And then we're gonna go all in with some of that corned beef. My mouth is watering right now. And finally, we have the last box tea cooked off. I was able to get 7 portions of box tea out of that batter, and they're pretty significant. You can maybe have 2 of these personally before I get full and fit into my macros, but we're gonna add some of that corned beef, touch of sour cream, go to town. I'm so hungry. Before I plate up, I'm gonna shred some of this corned beef. I mean, look at it, it's beautiful. Granted, yes, it's from Costco. Yeah, I didn't wanna wait 5 days to cure my own, but if you want to, go for it, please. You're not gonna hurt my feelings if you make your own corned beef. I'd actually be very proud of you. Now, since this has been cooking for almost 8 hours, we should be able to just kind of shred it. Oh, there's a crust from being, oh yes. Look at this. It has a crust. The inside is super moist. Oh, look at that. Now oh, look. Amazing looking. Yes. Super easy to do. Literally threw it in the oven at 300 degrees and just let it go. See, he knows. Look at him, he knows. There's meat involved. It is corned beef, so sorry, buddy. You can't have it. Now to plate these up, we're gonna go 1 nice box tea right in the center. And because I am tracking, we're gonna do 4 ounces and just shred, because it's so easy to shred. I'm literally just tearing it off the chunk right there. Ooh, it's actually a lot. We're gonna do 2 ounces. That looks great right there. This next part is optional, but just a touch of sour cream. I like to use that Tillamook stuff. Just a dollop goes a long way. Finish it with maybe just a bit of, ooh, you know what? This is gonna be super extra, but I bought this from a place called Meadow out here in the Portland area. And excuse me, I know I'm reaching. I have some lemon flaked sea salt. Look at this stuff. Because I was going to actually put some lemon into the sour cream, but instead, we're gonna do some of this lemon flaked salt, which is definitely not traditional, but it's probably amazing. I'm like, my mouth is watering thinking about this. And there it is, guys, our beautiful corned beef boxty. Super easy to make, mouth-wateringly deliciously looking. Oh my God, I can't even speak. My mouth is just going crazy. These don't take too long to make. You can kind of just let the corned beef go all day and just have it later. Make the boxties whenever you want them. At Hooley's, we used a jalapeno ranch dressing for the tacos for the corned beef, and I kind of miss it. I probably should use a fork and knife. Let's try to get the perfect bite. A little sour cream, a little corned beef, a little boxty. Look at this bite. A little bit of everything in there. That is what I want right now. Cheers. The boxty itself is creamy. The potato flavor comes through. The corned beef has a crust to it, also some salt, and then that lemon flaky sea salt kind of ties everything together, and the creaminess from the sour cream. Everything here works so well together. The boxty is by far one of my favorite style potato pancakes, and honestly, you guys really need to make this and just try it for yourself. Just like you should try all the merch over at chefpk.com. My name is Chef PK. This is Street Food. Get subscribed. Remember, keep playing with your food. All right, it's so good.